Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver. Is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health practitioner. So welcome to the first Wednesday in December. Today is December 1st. I want to take a moment and acknowledge World AIDS Day for people that have been impacted by HIV or AIDS. We salute you in your courage, in your healing, in your journey, and we also want to do everything that we can to make sure that we're working toward a world that does not have HIV or AIDS. We've made a lot of progress in our ability to be able to make the virus non-detectable, and we're going to continue that fight. So I want to continue on in our series, November and December. We're talking about healing for the holidays, and I want to take some time today and really address a topic that I get a lot of feedback about every year, throughout the year, particularly as we approach the holidays, and that is this topic of forgiveness. Now, I am very aware that some of you are going into this holiday with joy, excitement, and anticipation. For a lot of people, Christmas is their favorite time of year, from the inflatables and reindeer and lights to being able to have some delicious food and fellowship and being able to see people who you may not have been able to see over the past year or two due to the pandemic or for other reasons. And so there are some people that are going forward in this holiday with a joyful spirit, and you can also have joy in your heart and also resentment and anger and frustration because there may be some family or friends that you've got some strained relationships with. We talked about conflict in the family, bringing side-eye for dinner as one of our Thanksgiving topics. And so I am aware that both can exist, right? We can be excited and joyful and looking forward to the holiday and also have some unresolved pain that we have not dealt with. And people often ask me, should I forgive? If I want to forgive, how do I forgive? How do I know when I need to forgive? And I always tell people it's not a need or a should as much as it is a, what am I going to tell you? What's going to be well for you, right? What's going to be the healthiest option for you? So let's get into it. Heavy hearts, forgiveness, and the holidays. Now, most of you probably have at least one family member or friend who is the person that is your voice of reason, or we talk about the sinner on one side and the saint on the other, the angel or the devil, however you want to look at those two opposite ends of the continuum that we're always thinking about in terms of how we respond to people that have hurt us, right? So that part of us that says, I'm with it today, I'm here for it, is going to give that person some smoke. And then there's that other part of us that wants to be thoughtful about, hey, what is going on underneath this behavior? Why did you hurt me? And these are often the things that we think about when we're considering forgiveness. We have been taught that forgiveness is a component of our spirituality and our faith. So forgiveness is a part of that journey. We're trying to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. We recognize the presence of a higher power, and we understand that we're all imperfect beings and that we're going to make mistakes. And so forgiveness can, for some, just be a part of that journey. We've been taught it's the right thing to do. Be the bigger person. Forgiveness is a virtue. Don't carry around all that pain. Let it go. We don't want to be resentful and hardened over time with bitterness because we have things that we're still holding on to. The other thing sometimes is that we've been taught, however, to minimize our feelings and our priorities and our needs and place value more in others. And so we often consider forgiveness because we're thinking about this other person and we're not really thinking about how this relationship has affected us and how this hurt has affected us. Some of us are uncomfortable with conflict, and so we're going to do anything we can to make sure that it's easy and smooth and nobody dislikes me. I don't have anybody that's harboring anything out there toward me. And so we really try to initiate forgiveness of others and want others to forgive us. We have been taught in our families at times that family over everything, blood is thicker than water, right? Which connotes on some level that we are inherently supposed to forgive our family no matter what they do. that they're going to be a part of us. Family is forever. And so I need to forgive because you're my family. And sometimes I think what we take away from that is that we're able to do whatever we want to do to family members, and they should just be okay with it because we're family. Some of us desire closeness and intimacy. I think the majority of us want to have connection to others. And so in that wanting to have connection, we'll often consider forgiveness because it allows us to be able to get back to these people we love and care about. One of the things I want to be clear about with you all is what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean that we're going to reconcile our relationship. It doesn't mean that you're going to be back in my life in the same way that you were previously. It doesn't mean that we're going to have a relationship at all. I can forgive you and still not engage with you moving forward. I've accepted your apology. I've accepted that you sincerely are apologetic for what you have done to me, for the hurts that you have committed against me, and still ultimately make a decision that I don't want to have you in my life. Forgiveness is also not forgetting. And I know that we put a lot of things into the sea of forgetfulness, and our memories can get real short sometimes, and we give people a lot of leeway. But forgiving doesn't mean that I've forgotten what you've done to me. And it does not mean that I'm giving you permission to continue to hurt me. So forgiveness is also not acceptance. I don't accept the way that you treated me as something that I'm going to continue to allow. Forgiveness is also not denying. So we are not going to pretend that this did not happen. We are not going to be in this space of you giving a half-hearted apology, but also at the same time a jab, but not really taking any responsibility for what you did to hurt me, being dismissive of how I felt. Forgiveness is none of those things. So me choosing to forgive you does not mean that I'm dismissing on any level the pain that you caused me. What forgiveness is a choice. Forgiveness is a choice to be able to sincerely say to a person, I understand that you did not want to hurt me, and I understand that you are heartily sorry for these things that you did to hurt me, whether intentional or not. It does not, however, mean that we're going to be the same. We may be forever changed, and we're going to talk about what to consider in this. Now, I also want to be very clear that you have a choice not to forgive someone. Now, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're going to harbor these resentments in your heart. It doesn't mean that you are going to, every time you see this person, wish them some harm. Doesn't mean that you're going to interact with this person in a hostile or negative way if you choose not to forgive them. When you're choosing not to forgive a person, you are saying to them, that hurt that you caused me is something that I just at this moment in time cannot let go of. And so I'm not really ready to be able to say to you, I forgive you. I'm able to let that hurt go and recognize who you are as a person to me beyond this hurt. And we'll talk about some things to consider and why you just might not be ready to forgive somebody just yet. It doesn't mean that you won't ever forgive them, but it might mean that you're not in a place to do so right now. And part of that could be because this person has continued to hurt you. They're asking for forgiveness, but yet their behavior isn't changing. All right, so let's get into considerations because that's one of them. So let's look at the full history of the relationship. All right, so I think it's very important because we all make mistakes. Again, none of us are perfect. We are going to hurt people that we love. In fact, we are going to more than often than not hurt the people we love because those are the people that we have relationships with that are close. So who they are to us means more to us. And so we are going to more easily hurt people that we love and care about because what we do has more of an effect on them, and vice versa. What they do has more of an effect on us. I don't care necessarily about a person who may have unintentionally slighted me in the grocery store. We don't have a relationship. Oh, no worries. Right? But if it's you, this person that I love and care about, then I may look at it in a different way. So I have to consider the full history of the relationship. And often what we do when we're evaluating things is we like to look at only certain moments in time instead of the entirety of the relationship. Who have you been to me throughout this relationship? Whether you are my sibling or a parent, grandparent, a partner, a friend, who have you been to me? Have you shown up for me consistently? Have you been there for me when I needed you? Is this behavior something that is typical of you? this hurtful behavior, or is this something that's not typical of you? This may be something that happened one time, and throughout our relationship, you've been loving and caring and generous and thoughtful of me. And there may be this one thing that you've done different that hurt me, and I'm thinking about, okay, well, what's going on with that, right? So I want to think about that, as opposed to if you are showing up consistently engaging in this type of behavior, or as been known to happen, the more comfortable we get, the more I'm seeing all of your behaviors come out. So you hid some things from me over the years because you didn't want me to know those things about you. And now those behaviors are coming out, and I'm recognizing like, oh, wow, okay, so I did not have an accurate picture of who you were. I only saw parts of you. And now that I can see all of who you are, then those are some things I want to think about in considering whether or not I'm in a place to forgive you. It's important for us to get underneath the anger, right? Because oftentimes we are reactive in the moment because we're hurt. So maybe I'm hurt because you did something, and it may not even be something that's big in the scheme of things. You'll know how you get into an argument with somebody, and then a couple of days later, you can't even remember, like, what was the argument really about? Because maybe I was hungry or tired, or something happened beforehand, and it was an accumulation of events, and you just happened to be the person who I had that most recent interaction with. And so the anger came out, and something hurtful was said or done, and it wasn't about you at all. It could have been about something else, things that piled up throughout the day. Or am I a person that has a hard time letting things go? And forgiveness is important on two fronts, right? Because I have to think about this person that hurt me, but I also have to think about me and how I might have contributed to, right? Because we're going to talk about perception here in a second, right? So I may be a person that holds on to things. I have a hard time letting things go. So 6 years ago, you might have done something to me that hurt my feelings. Now I'm still holding on to that. And here it is. You said something to me and it rubbed me the wrong way. And now I'm all back in the 6 years ago pain because I never let that go. Even though I told you I forgave you, even though we've moved on and we've been going for 6 years, but I've been holding on to that resentment. And some people have difficulty being able to apologize or letting go of things and being able to forgive in general. And so it becomes very difficult and challenging for people even to be in that spirit of forgiveness, because they feel like, well, you slighted me once, you're going to do it again. That's who you are. And so you're like, well, is that really a fair representation of our relationship, going back to the totality of what the relationship has been, when we haven't had any incidents come up before? Well, if I'm a person that is holding on to and harboring things, then yes, for me, it's going to be difficult to move forward because I haven't addressed my own issues with being able to forgive. Intention, though it does not negate impact, is something in consideration for forgiveness. Did this person willfully try to hurt me? Did they willfully keep information from me? Did they willfully do something out of spite toward me? Did they willfully want to see me hurting? Right? Because maybe I've hurt them. We've had some things going on. Hurt people. Right? So intention is important when you're considering forgiveness. So maybe you did not intend to hurt me. It was something that you said. You realized when you said it, like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I should not have said that to you. I should not have done that to you. I didn't respond in an appropriate way. I was being reactive in that situation because of some things that were going on with me. I was in my hurt, and so I lashed out at you. Right? So these are things that we need to be thinking about when we're thinking about forgiveness. Is this person, again, usually thoughtful of you and conscientious of how they're affecting you, how their behavior affects you? Or is it a person that is me-focused and dismissive of how you feel? And oftentimes when we struggle with being able to apologize to other people, that is because there has been a power dynamic that we're used to. So when we feel like we're in positions of power, for whatever reason, it may have been your birth order in your family, or you were in charge more often. It may be who you are in your personal life in terms of you manage a lot of things, so you're used to having the power and control. And so for whatever reason, some people find it easier to be able to apologize when they're not in positions where they're used to being in control and having that power and feeling like, well, you should just accept that as a part of me, right? So this dismissiveness that people will say, well, you know how I am. You know I can be a jerk. You know how my personality is. You know how I feel about you, but not being able to really say an apology to you. Whereas some people are more other focused and more sensitive to how their behavior affects others. So they're much more likely to apologize, right? The conflict avoidant, much more likely to be apologetic, even for things that are not their own. But we don't want forgiveness to be like a garnish on a burnt piece of food, right? So I don't want to just be saying, oh, I'm so sorry, and not really have any behaviors to back up any change that I'm going to make for this behavior. So whether it's easy for you to apologize or not apologize, which moves us to the next section, is what are your behaviors after, right? After this behavior that occurred, this hurt that occurred, how are you responding? Are you apologetic? Are you making efforts to change behavior so that this doesn't happen again? Maybe you've started counseling, coaching. You got a spiritual advisor that you're working with. Maybe you're recognizing I'm stressed when I'm coming home and I'm taking it out on you. So are you doing things to better manage your stress so you're not taking out on this person? Hey, before we have this conversation, let me go get something to eat because I know I'm more irritable when I haven't eaten anything. So are you making those types of changes? Are you trying to make amends? Are you talking to this person about, hey, talk to me really about how this affected you and what we can do different? Because I want to make sure that I'm attending to your needs in this, right? When somebody is hurting, we want to be able to be present with them in that pain. And that's uncomfortable for us. We want to be able to, okay, we talked about it, like, let's move on. But it's not that simple. When you seriously hurt somebody, there may be a lot of steps in order to get back to building trust, for example, allowing a person to feel like you're safe again, allowing a person to want to invest their heart again in a relationship with you if you have not attended to that hurt. Sometimes what people will do is they'll change temporarily, and it's not even really change, because if it's temporary, is it change? I think not. But what'll happen is I will do some different things temporarily, right? Because I want to, Lil Wayne used to say in a song, the block is hot, right? So I know that right now you're upset with me, so let me be very careful about how I'm engaging with you. But those changes are not going to be anything that's going to be consistent. It is just me simply altering my behavior temporarily so that you can be okay in this moment, and then we can kind of move on past this and forget that this ever happened and not address it again when this behavior is still present, when these issues of hurt are still present, right? And you've likely heard that it's very difficult to forgive someone and move forward if they're still continuing to hurt you, right? So that's why the behavior after the hurt is so very important. The other thing that I want to highlight is about your own wellness, right? So we know that there are certain relationships that are supportive and nurturing and encouraging and loving, and that's not that your relationship is going to be bubbles and giggles all the time. All right, we have conflict with people we love, but in general, when we are together, when we're interacting in whatever type of relationship that it is we have, then I find you to be a safe person. I find you to be a person who cares about me, who I care about. It is reciprocal in nature, right? So I'm giving and I'm receiving, and vice versa. Or is this a person that causes you a lot of distress? When you leave them or when you're done talking to them, you feel depleted, or you feel like you have been diminished in some way or dismissed. You're not being considered at all in this relationship. So you don't feel well when you leave this person. Maybe you're more anxious or fearful or more insecure when you're around this person, and you don't feel that when you're around other people. Maybe this person makes you uncomfortable. Maybe it is difficult to talk to this person because you don't feel like they really listen to you and care about your needs or your concerns. They're a person that's constantly blaming you for things and not taking responsibility. So they're not a person that you actually, when you think about it, enjoy being around. So you're not well when you're with them. And that's an important aspect of any relationship. Does this relationship allow me to be healthy, or does it create dynamics where I'm more unhealthy? Right? So there is no right or wrong way to approach forgiveness. I say that, right? So some of us are not sincere in actually forgiving. So we say we're forgiving and we really haven't. We're holding on to things, right? That's not forgiveness. But in terms of you deciding to forgive someone, again, that's your choice. You get to make that decision because you're the person that has to actually deal with the consequences. And you're the person that has to decide whether these interactions are going to be healthy for you or not moving forward. And you're also the person who has to work through your own pain to be able to allow yourself to move forward in a way that's healthy for you before you even get to focus on forgiving someone else, right? And sometimes we just need to work on ourselves. Then we can come back later and assess whether we're going to forgive. So whether you decide to forgive a person or not, whether a person decides to forgive you or not, I just want to make sure that above all else, whatever your choices and your consequences, be well.